All right, today we're going to travel back in time, all the way to the 5th century. We're diving into a high-stakes theological brawl that nearly split Christianity right down the middle. And at the very center of this storm was one man, Saint Cyril of Alexandria. His fight, believe it or not, would go on to shape the future of one of the world's biggest religions.
It sounds kind of crazy when you put it like that, right? How can one argument have that much power? But that's exactly what went down. This isn't just a dry history lesson. It's really a story about how one single, fiercely debated idea can echo through the centuries. So let's get into it.
So, to set the scene, we need to go to a city that was an absolute powerhouse of intellect and culture back in the 5th century. Alexandria in Egypt. And right there, at the heart of it all, is our main character, a theologian by the name of Cyril.
Okay, so let's just get a quick snapshot of this guy's life. He was born around 376 AD. By 417, he climbs the ladder to become the Patriarch of Alexandria. I mean, that's one of the most powerful jobs in the entire early church. But the year you really need to remember is 431. That's the year of the Council of Ephesus. And even though he died about a decade later, what happened at that council is what would cement his legacy forever.
Yeah, Cyril was no small-time player. He had this sharp classical education that made him an incredibly tough debater and a brilliant theologian. And that job as patriarch, it put him right at the center of power, which, as we're about to see, also meant it put him at the center of a massive conflict.
And here we go, this is the main event. We're talking about a theological firestorm. This wasn't just some minor disagreement. It was a crisis that seriously threatened to tear the early Christian church apart from the inside out. The question that started it all was, on the surface, pretty simple. Who or what exactly was Jesus Christ? Sounds straightforward, but the answer? Well, the answer would shake the very foundations of Christian belief. Everything was on the line. So this whole enormous conflict basically came down to two competing ideas. On one side, you had thinkers like Nestorius. Their view was that Christ's divine and human natures were kind of separate, almost like two roommates sharing a body. They're connected, sure, but they're distinct. But Cyril, he argued for something way more integrated. He said the divine and human natures were perfectly and inseparably united. Think of it like a flame. You can't separate the heat from the light. It's one thing. For Cyril, Jesus was one person with two natures, perfectly blended together. So let's really dig into the heart of Cyril's argument here. Why was he so absolutely unbending on this point? What was really at stake for him? This quote really gets to the core of it. For Cyril, the divinity of Jesus was completely non-negotiable. His logic was simple. If Jesus wasn't truly and fully divine, then he just couldn't be the Son of God. And if that's the case, the whole thing falls apart. And this is the part you really got to get. This wasn't some abstract intellectual game for theologians to play. For Cyril, and for everyday believers, this was about salvation itself. The way they saw it, only a being who was both fully human and fully divine could build that bridge between humanity and God. The stakes just couldn't get any higher. So this massive debate couldn't go on forever. It was all heading for a major showdown, a council in a city called Ephesus, where this whole thing would reach its dramatic and very politically messy conclusion. The year is 431 AD. Church leaders from all across the Roman Empire gather in Ephesus. They're there to solve this crisis once and for all. And Cyril is there, ready to make his case. And here's what they decided. The council, thanks in large part to Cyril's influence, officially affirmed the doctrine of the Holy Trinity. This became the Orthodox position, one God existing as three distinct but inseparable persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And you can see how this reflects Cyril's argument, right? It's a model of perfect unity. Just like the Son has a unified divine and human nature, God itself is a perfect indivisible unity. And let's be totally clear, Cyril's intellectual firepower was the deciding factor here. His arguments didn't just win the debate, they were basically carved into the very foundation of Christian theology. They became a cornerstone that is still standing firm to this day.
But Cyril's influence didn't just stop when the council ended. His work sent ripples out that would continue to shape the church, and honestly the world, for centuries and centuries to come.
I mean, his impact was just massive. His specific understanding of Christ laid the groundwork for what would become Eastern Orthodox theology. His ideas helped shape the church itself. This idea of a community where grace is passed down through physical rituals or sacraments, led by bishops whose authority could be traced all the way back to the original apostles. He was also a major force behind missionary work, and his writings were so influential that even popes like Leo I would look to his work for guidance.
So in the end, when you really look at it, Cyril did way more than just settle an argument. He laid out a whole theological vision, a blueprint that would guide how the church developed for the next 1,500 years.
And that brings us all the way back to that question we started with, but with a new twist. The story of Cyril proves that ideas have incredible power. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What are the big arguments we're having right now in our own time that people 1,500 years from now will look back on as the moments that defined everything? What's our Council of Ephesus?